10 minutes, and I might even be able to give you some of your lives back if I use less. Your Worship, Mayor Fennell, Regional and City Councillors, City staff, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are interested, I do live and work in Brampton. I've lived here for 18 years, and I not only live and work in Brampton, but I often walk to work in Brampton into our historic downtown. I'm here this evening on behalf of Lawrence Stevenson, LLP. I would like to take a few moments to tell you something about us and to offer our comments in respect of the decision you are being asked to make this evening. Lawrence's was established in 1924 and has always been resident in Brampton's downtown. Since 1956, we have conducted our business from premises which we own, located in the southwest quadrant of Brampton's downtown. Over the years, we have renovated, improved, and expanded our building so that the building that was once a small tinsmith shop now accommodates the largest law firm in Brampton with over 40 employees. As you may recall from our previous delegations to City Council, we are concerned that the proposed expansion of City Hall threatened us with expropriation. The recommended proposal before you for approval this evening does not require the expropriation of any property for the proposed development. We encourage you to respect the private property rights of those of us who have already invested in Brampton's downtown. As longtime residents and property owners in the downtown, we are excited by the recommended proposal. The creativity and extraordinary vision that it presents for the future of development in Brampton's downtown is exciting. Rather than limiting itself to a large utilitarian building occupying an entire block of our downtown, it proposes development sprinkled across 4 blocks of the downtown on city-owned property. Dominus Construction Group and Zeidler Architects propose to set a high standard for quality and creativity for development of Brampton's historic downtown. The proposed development would accomplish many objectives. The projected space requirements of 126,000 square feet would be met within the required timeline. Land already owned by the city would be redeveloped in a coordinated, unifying, creative, and attractive manner. The city would be able to accommodate its need for administrative space without monopolizing the privately owned leasable space located in the downtown. This would give our downtown the advantage of retaining the city's administrative staff within close proximity to each other, while at the same time making space available for the private sector. And fourthly, the private property rights of those who have already invested in the downtown will be respected, and there will be no expropriation. The process approved by Council for this RFP has attracted some criticism. However, it invited proposals from participants on a basis that would enable the participants and the city staff, through a competitive dialogue process, to focus on the substance of each proposal with a view to making each proposal the best that it could be. It quite properly enables highly qualified professional staff to assemble the detailed and technical information required to assess each proposal on its merits, and in light of the objectives established by Council, and to synthesize that material into a report consideration by Council. Council is the decision maker. The next step in this process is the one that we are participating in today. Having read the staff report, the decision makers meet in this open forum where all can benefit from the questions that any of them asks and from the answers received. As with any other decision related to procurement or the city dealings in respect of real estate, an appropriate degree of confidentiality is required. All of the decision makers are to have the same information and are to receive advice only from qualified and knowledgeable experts. As a lawyer, I appreciate how closely this follows the principle of law that requires integrity and transparency in the decision-making process. If, as we would expect, the recommendations of staff are approved this evening, the resolutions included in that recommendation would authorize negotiations exclusively with Dominus Construction Group to achieve the best deal possible for the city on the principles outlined in the recommended proposal. That process has produced a creative and exciting project that meets with the objectives set out in the RFP and repeated in the staff report. The result of the process meets or exceeds the expectations of the RFP as set out in that report. We also take this opportunity to recognize and thank Mr. Mo Lewis and Mr. Julian Pattison for your leadership in this process. Anyone who followed the debates prior to the issuance of the RFP would know that you've been given a difficult and stressful assignment. You and your staff have undertaken and completed the tasks that were assigned to you in a highly professional and exemplary manner. As stated by McKellar and Associates, the Process and Fairness Advisor to City Council for this project, the recommendations received by Council as a result of this RFP meet the highest standards of professional conduct and are a testament to the caliber of city officials that were assigned to carry out your wishes. Gentlemen, and your staff, thank you for your efforts and thank you for your results. This has been referred to as a $204 million project. Although that cost is set out in the recommendations, it is important to realize what that amount includes. By way of comparison, any of us who have purchased a house on the basis of mortgage financing understand that although the purchase price may be $400,000, for example, by the time the mortgage has been paid off over approximately 25 years, the actual amount paid in relation to that $400,000 property, including maintenance, taxes, utilities, and interest, is likely closer to $1 million. In the same way, if we are to compare apples with apples, we must bear in mind that the construction cost of $94 million is the purchase price, and the balance is related to occupancy and maintenance costs and to debt servicing. The stated estimate of occupancy costs per square foot of $27.62 would appear to be very reasonable. The fact that the occupancy costs would be fixed over the full 25 years of the term of the lease is more than reasonable. Added to that, the fact that at the end of 25 years the city would own a building in a condition to be agreed upon and would have the expected benefit of spin-off development in the downtown make that investment sound even more reasonable and even exciting. The projected annual cost of $8.2 million is, first of all, an upper limit that would be subject to negotiation and to any benefits that could be achieved through interest rate adjustments or federal or provincial financial support. And second, is fixed over the 25 years of the term. Further, City Council has committed itself to ensuring that there would be nominal or no additional impact to the property taxpayer from City Hall expansion. That commitment would have to be upheld at each budget process in each of the 25 years of the term of that lease, just as it should be in all budget discussions. For a city with an annual budget in the range of $500 million, it should not be a reason for not proceeding with this project. We believe that Brampton is at a watershed point in the development of its historic downtown. The recommendation that you are being asked to approve this evening comes as a result of a resolution of City Council passed in June 2009 and an RFP issued at the end of October 2009. By making that decision, Council initiated a course of action that would give it the opportunity to take a bold and decisive step in setting a path and an example for the development of our downtown. The proposal is creative. It is within the range of construction costs that were anticipated when the RFP was issued. It meets the objectives set out in the RFP, and it sets a high standard of quality and creativity for the future development of our downtown. Over the course of this debate and this RFP process, the properties in our downtown, particularly those in the southwest quadrant, have been in a development freeze. Property owners are discouraged from improving their properties by the risk of being expropriated. Landlords are unable to find tenants except those who would prefer short-term leases. And property owners who wish to sell their property find that buyers are unwilling to step into the environment of uncertainty caused by the city's expressed need for administrative space and the lack of a decision as to how it will address that need. If this proposal is not what Council was looking for when it issued the RFP, what can it possibly be looking for? Tonight you have before you what appears to be an exciting, creative proposal that provides the means for a beautiful investment by the city in its downtown. In order to take the next step to sort out the details of that development and its costs, it would be necessary to approve the staff recommendation. It would then be possible to explore those opportunities through negotiation and to move closer toward the development of our downtown. We urge you to take that step. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. I live on Mill Street, and I often walk to the downtown and regularly frequent the Four Corners Library. But I'm opposed to this elaborate plan. Most residents of Brampton are struggling to make ends meet and are already frustrated with the overspending of our City Hall. Letters appear weekly in The Guardian asking our council to hold the line on spending, and this proposal is just going too far. If city staff need more office space, a development across George Street with a walkway joining the two buildings would be a sensible solution. But to propose so many elaborate structures and a new library is an extravagance that the taxpayers can't afford at this time. As suggested by residents in the past, our council could work on enticing a much-needed grocery chain to locate in the downtown, possibly on the main level of the proposed George Street development. Good idea. At least then, the residents of the new downtown condos wouldn't have to drive and add to the already congested downtown. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, I have a motion moved by Councillor Dillon and Councillor Hames to receive the delegations. All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. At this time, Council, to move to the next stage of the meeting, I have again the motion before me. This is an opportunity for those members of council, for all members of council, to ask whatever questions you came to ask this evening, and to proceed at this time. Councillor Moore, you'd indicated you would like to take a 5-minute break before you. Okay, I think that's fair. A five-minute break because it's almost 2.5 hours. So we'll be back in 4 minutes. council to resume your seats, please. A break has now come to an end. We are now at the portion of the meeting where we have some councillors who want to ask questions, and I will take the questions for council. I don't think you see the split screen there. No, I'm looking at a split screen. It has a section called Request to Speak. It has a section called Request to Question. The protocol here is if you want to ask a question, you signify by pushing a button and your name comes up. And the questions are interspersed with those who are speaking, unless we all agree to just use the speakers list. Councillor Paleschi, you're first to speak, and we have Councillor Gibson, Sprovieri, and Sanderson. I think it might be better if we stick to the request to speak list so that we're not trying to decide when you push your button. Pardon? I will do these three questions first because they came on Gibson, Sprovieri, Sanderson, Paleschi, and then you can get your questions, and then if we could all use request to speak after that. But Councillor Paleschi, did you have a point of order? Sorry.
I do.
Okay.
I have a point of order. At the beginning of the meeting, you did say that if anybody else wanted to speak,
Yes.
that they would be given an opportunity to. And a gentleman came up to me and said, when am I going to have that opportunity to speak? So I know that we went through the delegations that were listed,
Yes.
but there is a gentleman here that is a retailer downtown, and he wants to speak to some comments that were made in general about retailers by, I don't remember which delegation, so I think it's only fair.
Mr. Paleschi, would you please make a motion that we reopen the agenda to
I would
add a
move that we
delegation?
reopen
And it
to
requires
allow-
the unanimous vote of council?
Fine.
Okay.
I will move to reopen that we allow, I think there may be two gentlemen that wanted to speak. I know of one that approached me during the break, and I think Earl said that he thought there was another one, or it might have been the same gentleman. So I
Okay.
ask that we allow that delegation to speak.
I'm moved by Councillor Paleschi, seconded by Councillor Moore, that we reopen the agenda. All those in favor, move that we add, who's the person? Okay, to be a delegation. All those in favor? Thank you. We are still then in delegations. You become delegation number 8. Please come forward.
I'm not going to be that long.
You need to state your name and, all that openly.
Okay, my name is Gregory Schwartz, and I own We Love Tennis, which is located in the downtown. And I just wanted to change a perception that has been out here, that I heard a couple of the delegates say, well, that the retail environment was substandard or seedy, but I don't feel that at all. I'm proud to be downtown. I'm proud of all the retailers. I'm actually wearing a coat from David Andrew, which I think is a very high-end retailer. I know there's a number of people that have bought rackets from my shop or clothes, especially I've even seen a couple sitting here. I'm passionate about that. So, and I remember when the Rose Theater opened up and the mayor cut the ribbon, and I invested downtown because I saw the potential of the Rose Theater. So I'm not going to try to sway anybody's votes with that, but as a retailer, I've got to know a lot of the other retailers in here, and I'm proud of them. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Paleschi. Councillor Gibson now going to the questions. Councillor Gibson, Sprovieri, Sanderson. Councillor Hutton, could you go about a request to speak, and we won't use the request for questions, just so there's one list and it doesn't get confusing.
I had a couple of questions.
Well, we were going to just track down from this one, that's all. But I'll start with Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll save my comments for later, but most of the questions I had were around finances. And I'll be quite honest, I'm not a businessman. I had a small business, didn't work out very well, so it tells you how much I know about finances. But I can balance my checkbook, unlike Councillor Callahan, who says he can't do his. But I don't understand the finance of this, and Mr. Bejor, in my opinion, brought up some very good questions, and some of those questions I had too. So I need staff to answer the questions that Mr. Benjar had brought up around the financing of it. Do you remember it? That's why I asked for a copy of the
Can I ask which
CFC.
staff was taking notes of the particular questions of the delegations? Councillor Gibson is asking the appropriate staff to respond to the comments, questions of one of the delegates. Mr. Patterson?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. And I'll share some of these finance questions with Commissioner Lewis as we go back and forth between traditional finance and real estate finance. Mr. Baynard indicated some numbers that need correction. In particular, I'll start off with just the cost and the unit cost of $606 a square foot that he quoted. The actual size of the structure, the gross size of the Phase 1 structure is 389,000 square feet. So when you factor in the admin space, all the amenity spaces, the police station, the parking, the link, all the mechanical areas, the denominator for your calculation is not 126,000, and it's 389,000, which produces a unit cost number of about $242 a square foot. Again, keeping with that line of questioning and that from...
Can I just ask you, does that include parking?
That includes parking.
Okay.
Keeping with that line of discussion from actually the first two delegates, the Phase 1 and Phase 3 admin space works out to about $240 a square foot. The library space works out to about $260 a square foot. That includes finishes. These costs are consistent with the numbers produced by the Altus Group. They're consistent with the numbers produced by our quantity surveyor in-house, our own cost company, A.W. Hooker. So we're quite confident on those numbers. In terms of the rate of return number that Mr. Baynard referred to, the 7.3%, that number is an effective interest rate number. It doesn't take into effect the cost of borrowed capital that Dominus has to pay. So Dominus is not making a return of 7.3%. In fact, they're making a very modest safe rate of return once you factor in their borrowed cost of capital. It's not my intention to go into the detailed numbers in terms of Dominus's return on equity requirements, Dominus's internal rate of return requirements. Those are proprietary and confidential numbers that we assured them through the competitive dialogue process would be kept proprietary and confidential. Just like any procurement matter where a company seems and wants to establish an advantage over their competitors, they do it in two ways. They establish a cost advantage, so they produce something cheaper than their competitor, or they provide their service or their product differently, better and differently. Dominus has done both. They've established a competitive advantage through a cost advantage through their offer and through differentiation. And we can assure you through the testing and the validation of the numbers that we did, through our own staff, through Altus Hellier, through Deloitte and Touche, the returns are very modest.
I think Mr. Lewis had something to add.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The couple other things that were mentioned by Mr. Bejnar was the issue in terms of the financial capacity and of the respondents. And as reported to Council, it was a staff report dated March 19, 2010, to Committee of Council on March 24, 2010. The Evaluation Committee made it abundantly clear that all three respondents were put through a number of tests, and we had come to the determination that all three respondents had the financial and technical capability to deliver on the visions that they had put forward. So granted, we didn't elaborate on that part of it in the final offer report, and that was because we had already reported that fact out, and that was a condition for the respondents to be proceeding to the competitive dialogue phase. The other comment that Mr. Bejnar made centered around the fairness, process and fairness advisor. And I just want to say a couple of things, and one is that because if it was a new procurement process that we followed, we as staff advised council that the trend in public procurement is to the use of process and fairness advisors. In fact, I believe it was in 2010, the province of Ontario did come out with some public procurement documents for guidance to public sector bodies, which one of their publications was a guide to use of process and fairness advisor, and actually there's several cases where process and fairness advisors have now been used and are reporting out to the decision-making bodies. The other thing,
Can I stop? I think the question was, I think the way he worded it was that he had recommended this process to us and then is advising us whether or not it's fair. I think that's the way so I mean, I don't think anybody's questioning his credentials.
okay, so, again, we, as staff, were looking for ways to come up with an RFP that would meet council's objectives, and so we did, as staff, make the recommendation that we proceed with the competitive dialogue process based on some information, and then we were to utilize him to help explain things to council so that council was comforted in that would be a manner in which to proceed.
I don't think that really answered it, but it is an unfair question to put any staff member on, I think, anyway. Maybe that's more for us to determine. The other thing that I had a hard time with was the savings, what I looked at savings of $1.6 million. I don't know which commissioner to ask this of, but if we had done this by ourselves, other than going out to do it. And I understand the risk. I understand, as we did the Rose Theatre, there was a risk in us doing it ourselves. As we did Cassie Campbell, any other thing we've done in the city of Brampton, there's always a risk. Other than the risk of doing it ourselves, why wouldn't we do it ourselves? Other than the fact that the last council said not to.
Through you, Madam Mayor, in the direction given to staff by council, the option that the city would construct and finance the facilities was eliminated. So what we did is we issued the RFP and we evaluated the RFP based on the direction of council, and what we did for illustration purposes was provide those figures that showed you that one, on the capital cost side, the information that you were giving in previous staff reports, the construction costs, we wanted to give council comfort that the figure proposed by Dominus, the construction cost, was comparable, so that showed it was a reasonable cost. And then the second piece, in terms of the the annual occupancy cost versus the debt servicing costs, we brought those to your attention, and you're right, there is an interest rate differential that we identified, and we called it the higher cost of capital, and the other differential would be, again, the risk, and to be specific, what I said in the presentation was one primary risk is the fact that once we were to negotiate and the work would be started, if there were other costs that were incurred in order for the respondent to construct the building, that would be borne by them because we would be only signed on for an occupancy cost. Regardless of what the actual total capital cost ended up being, that would be borne by the respondent, and the city would be signed on for the annual occupancy cost, and that would be our commitment. And then the other component that would be included in that differential was what Commissioner Pattison explained, and that was the for rate of return or profit margin that the respondent would have built into the proposal.
So other than the risk and the fact that you were, and this isn't, please don't take it as a criticism, but you were directed by council to take this process, past council, not this council. Other than that and the risk, there were no other reasons not to, and try not to put words in your mouth, no other reasons not to do it ourselves. Is that correct? Sorry to put you on the spot. You were under direction, let me be clear about this. You were under direction by the last council to take this process down this road. There's no doubt about that, and I supported that. I'll be very honest, I did support that, we all did. But other than that, there was no reason, and the risk that we'd have to take, which I'm not sure what is yet, but I think Councillor Pleshy may have some questions on that after. That's all there was, the reasoning for not doing it ourselves.
Councillor, maybe I could respond since we're all the same council. When this RFP commenced, it was in the previous term of council, and that was the direction of this council. In the previous term of council, there were long reports substantiating why this council voted in that way. So that's the terms of this
Yeah, I just said that, I admitted that, that's right. Okay.
That's right.
There are no other reasons, okay. I did have another question on the financing, but now I can't remember what it is. Okay, I'll, thank you very much. I have to say, and I know it's not a question, but, you know, you guys, I know how much time you must have spent on all this, and it's a remarkable amount of time to be done that, so thank you very much for that. And I'll get back on the board for later.
Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Hutton, then we're going to go to the top list, Councillor Plushy, Councillor Moore.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few questions to understand this proposal a little bit better. Although the report was quite descriptive and informative, but I still have a few questions. And but I want to clarify that, Mr. Kurajar, you're on this. You signed this document, but you were never mentioned by the delegate. You live in Brampton, don't you? Yes, sir, I do. You're my constituent, yeah. I thought I knew you were. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to. Yeah, I think slowly they're all. You know, we're so blessed to have such quality staff that live in other municipalities that could work in other municipalities, but yet they choose to come and work in Brampton because it's a great place to work. So we're very blessed to have good staff here from other municipalities too. And also, and they're slowly all coming to Brampton anyway, especially as they retire. The Rosedale Village is just a great place for retirement. Yeah. That's right. You're in Rosedale Village. That's right. Yeah. Anyway, I just want to make a statement first, and I got to say, it, phase one, it really excites me. I think it's a great proposal, and when I seen the depiction there, I thought, what a great solution. It's simple, it's clean, it doesn't require expropriation, doesn't require other parties, other partners, and we have 3 years to achieve this project, and it's going to move quickly, and it's going to get done. Whereas if we had to go with other partners, you know, the private landowners tend to hold the city captive and try to get every dollar out of the public purse as possible from past experiences. And certainly, I'm happy we don't have to go through that again. Now, the questions. First of all, when we put out this this proposal called, how many people actually came in and picked up the package to see whether they liked to bid on this or to take part in this proposal? Do we have many interested parties?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, we had 43 interested parties that attended the non-mandatory site meeting on November 27th of 2009.
And do you think that this process we went through scared most of them away?
I think going back to the comments of one of the delegates, we were more focused on the quality of the respondents as opposed to the number of the respondents. I think we did get some quality submissions, and the evidence of that is before you today.
Certainly. And through the chair, has staff been consulted with TRCA at all about this site, whether it be fairly simple to get approval, or is that going to be another one of these where TRCA and the Ministry of Natural Resources are just going to take years and years before this flooding issue is resolved? Because I believe that most of these sites are all in the floodplain that we're looking at. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, the consultations have occurred, and their detailed submissions did address the floodproofing requirements. And because the preponderance of the floor space is commercial, office, and retail, the requirements for floodproofing are much less than the high-density residential than you've experienced in the past with the other proposals such as Altera. So they can be and will be addressed satisfactorily.
Okay. The next question I have is that this proposal comes to us in 3 phases on page 14. It tells us the different phases. That are we, if we approve the staff recommendation tonight, are we tied in with these 3 phases, and is there a time span that has been identified in how many years we must achieve these 3 phases, or do we have, is there flexibility where future councils may decide that we don't need a 130,000 square foot library because now with the high tech coming in, and you don't need all these books in storage, everything's done CDs, and books will be on CDs and so on, so you don't need 130,000 square feet, say in 10 years time, and they want to reduce it, future council, whoever's here, may want to reduce it, the square footage. Will we be tied in with this 130,000 square feet if we give this approval tonight? Just wanted to clarify that.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor, as I said in the introduction to the financial evaluation, is that the RFP did call for the library space. It was addressed in terms of phases 2 and 3. The issue you have is that, as I said, the RFP, the city did not specify the time in which those works would occur. What we did is we signaled to the respondents clearly that the phase 1 work we needed to be occupying by 2014. So the answer to your question is that by adopting the resolution here as recommended by staff this evening, what council is doing is signaling they agree to the long-term plan as proposed by Dominus, and we would be looking to negotiate and get the details worked out on phase 1. However, with respect to phase 2, that is something that, again, we've signaled that we're interested in the long-term vision, but there would be opportunity for this council to refine some of the work in terms of the square footage, based on the fact that the long-term plan identifies the library in the phase 2 as indicated in the report.
Through the chair, I think that this is a critical point, because we certainly don't want to tie future council's hands today, because I remember when with the Rose Theater experience, we had a lot of issues there where the city, we just, you were not here, Mr. Lewis, but I was, and we were under threat of lawsuits, and because we weren't moving fast enough to build the theater, and there was a lot of, we were put under a lot of pressure, and I certainly don't want to make a decision today that's going to put future councils under pressure. And so I want to clarify then we should put in a resolution that, with the approval, that I'd like to amend the motion that we ensure staff clarify that this 130,000 square foot library will not be mandatory, and it's going to be open for debate, and it's going to be a flexible for the future council. There's going to be flexibility. So I want to make sure that's in the motion, in the resolution, Madam City Manager, because we've had problems in the past, and we don't want to get into these kind of problems again. On that point, I'm certainly concerned about that. Also, the page 37, you talk about the different comparisons, whether it's city financed or if it's developer financed. There's a difference in cost, and there's a possibility of savings if the city does its own financing. It says that there would be a difference of the developer would be 8.2, the city would be 6.6. So I did the math, and over 25 years, it comes to about a $40 million saving if the city does the financing at the lower rate, which you specify in the report. Do we have that? Will we have that option to say to the developer, fine, you build the project, but we're going to look after the financing? Do we have that option?
Through you, Madam Mayor, as we, I would say that we have all options available, open to us. That would be one option that we could be reporting back when we report back to council as part of the 2012 budget process. So that is an option that is available too.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. And then finally, page 39, you show the cost of the various phases. Again, I really want to cover the basis that we are not, future councils will not be tied into fixed timetables where the developer will say, hey guys, within 5 years we're going to build this library, and within the next 5 years we're going to be building the other building, and so on. So that should be our call when we're ready to. We feel that there's a need to build the library, and or the council of the day feels that there's a need to build more office space on the existing library site, that the council will call the shot and not the developer and say, hey guys, we're ready to build, let's go, or otherwise we're going to sue you because you're not meeting, you're not going through with the agreement. And it's happened before. That's why I'm raising this. The old saying goes, once bitten, twice shy. So I want to make sure that this does not happen again.
Again, through you, Madam Mayor, the costs that you're referring to on that slide, what we did is we provided those for illustrative purposes because what we were putting before council today was the long-term vision. You understood what the long-term vision was. And again, because in the RFP we did not specify the time for those other amenities, then the respondents did not price out and include in their final offer costs for the phases 2 and 3. Okay? So again, by adopting it tonight, council's signaling that they like the long-term vision, but again, the first focus is to be working on phase 1, get the contractual agreements. It is then council that would determine the timing of the other phases.
That's great. I'd like to hear that too. And finally, what I'd like staff to really clarify is that I received some information about there's an index, I believe, Mr. Patterson, you're aware, the construction index, and specifies, gives the cost of signature buildings, Class A, Class B, and Class C. And the information I received that today, the prices are generally around the $222 per square foot for signature A, Class A buildings. So I know you you indicated that we're up around $242 with the whole package, and that seems to be still a little bit high. So I know that these numbers are not fixed in stone. So I want to, before we sign any final deals, and I will support going forward tonight, but before we sign any final deals, we want to make sure that we're not getting, we're getting good value for our money.
Through you, Madam Mayor. We did look to the costing services indexes, and they typically provide ballpark numbers. Obviously, they can't capture all of the specifics that we would do in our detailed elemental cost breakdowns, but we're very close, and the numbers were tested through Altus Hellier, as I said, through our in-house quantity surveyor, through our normal costing consulting, A.W. Hooker. So things like, the lead gold premium and things like that wouldn't necessarily be reflected in that cost index number. But yes, certainly as we get down to the negotiation part, we'll look at that very closely.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Sanderson?
Madam Mayor, and I would certainly like to thank staff for all the hard work they've done over this past year. I know it's taken an enormous amount of work. I got a question though, and I know you can't answer right now. I'd like to know, what the cost of all of our staff time and other outside agencies and all that is putting this process together. I'd like to know what the cost is doing it this way versus the traditional RFP. And again, I don't need the answer tonight because I know you won't be able to do that. And I got another question here. And when we get this building, when phase 1 and 1A is done, what do we get? Do we get a finished building, or do we still got to finish the inside? Is it in fit-up condition, or?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, there is some degree of finishes, and like all of the buildings that we occupy, typically the fit-up allowance is something that requires some top-up, based on our how we set things up. So, and that is the case with any of the buildings that we build or any of the buildings that we lease. So there is some allowance, but to be quite frank, I would expect that there would be some fit-up costs as well.
But the actual building itself, the finishes and everything, we're still going to have to add some to that. Is it custom built to us, for us?
It will be built to our specifications because we'll be the long-term tenant.
Okay. And Councillor Sprovieri touched on it as well, and the long-term. And he mentioned that like we cannot negotiate for future councils. Are we bound to Dominus once we sign this agreement for all these 3 phases?
Through you,
Is the city bound, I should say, not?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, the occupancy cost number that is before you today is for phase 1. The 25-year lease to own would be for phase 1. And certainly I think it would be the respondent's expectation, if they're taking the risk to construct this, that we would, as my presentation indicated, be that AAA tenant with that strong covenant, because that will help them bring this project forward.
So my question is, are we bound for the other 2 phases?
We are not bound for any particular cost figures. As Commissioner Lewis indicated, we've estimated some pricing on those. The timing of those will be dependent on us, but for economic development purposes, we estimated some numbers for those phases as well. So no, not bound.
No, we're not bound?
No.
Is there a penalty for if we don't do it?
through you, Madam Mayor, is that, again, what we're looking for in terms of our recommendation would be to enter negotiations to get Phase 1 and Phase 1 documentation and get that project moving. By adopting the recommendation here tonight, council is signaling that they like the long-term vision, but there's no financial commitment that's being entered into in Phase 2 and 3 this evening.
So there's no penalty.
Well, we want to make sure that it's in the agreement, that we don't get penalized.
Through you, Madam Mayor, there may be some confusion. The way the recommendation is drafted, council would be in recommendation 2 confirming that the preferred respondent, the preferred vision of Dominus is approved. And then council is directing staff to do the next step, which is proceed with Phase 1. There's no other direction being given.
For now. I'm done for now, yeah.
Thank you. First question is very basic. The breezeway, is there a problem with not having, it's going across from the second floor? Is that safe enough? Could we not go from the third floor? I hate to think of 15 years from now, some parade or something getting caught under there. And are there major implications to having the breezeway a floor higher, going from third floor to third floor?
Madam Mayor, the drawings and the aspect of the walkway is a conceptual option right now. When we get into the detailed design work, we'll have to look at a whole raft of considerations, including traffic movements, visibility, sight lines, urban design considerations, which may have the effect of moving it up or changing its design. So that's not set in stone.
It's not etched in stone,
No.
okay. And I don't expect an answer to this one because it's way down the road, but when we eventually build on the current library site, then that's too far for a breezeway, but we need to think about path system, perhaps to tie in some of the merchants and things like that and have a path system, a smaller path system than Toronto, of course, but that's an exciting concept to have to connect all of our buildings and other commercial buildings in the downtown. So hopefully that will be considered as well. An underground system hopefully will, and we won't need to have an extended breezeway. Mayor, if you'll give me one more minute, I won't have to go back on the other board. Please. Yes?
Superman, just continue.
Okay, I'm through with my questions, but Mr. Bejnar emails me just about every other week. I've never seen anybody with such knowledge and such love of the city. He's an expert on just about everything. I think he should be a newspaper reporter. Anyway, and because of the many questions that he's raised, which I need answering and aren't going to get answered tonight, although nobody wants to see this go further, and I'm very excited about the concept. Councillor Pleshy and I are the only two left who moved this building down here from, voted to bring City Hall down here. So my love of the downtown needs no explanation, but I can't support going ahead with this without answering some of Mr. Bejnar's questions, so I'm going to have to vote for deferral on this item because we won't get answers to all those questions. Deferral of a month. I'm being distracted, I'm sorry. Yeah, yes, I'm moving to deferral, unfortunately. Yes.
Deferral
Okay.
motion is,
No, I will withdraw my deferral motion. I'm just stating my position. I won't have to come back on the board. But unfortunately, we do need answers to some of those questions, and we won't get them tonight, so, thank you.
Well, I'm looking forward to having every question answered tonight. That's why we're here tonight. That's why all the staff is here tonight. That's why all the material's here tonight. And I know there's been some chat about deferral, but I'd say to council, defer to talk to who? Because as the clerk has said, your only resource at this point is the staff, and they're all here. And so far, every question that has been raised has been answered, and I think we should continue to ask our questions tonight while we're here in public, well, everybody can see that there was nothing asked in any other way. It's transparent and it's open, but I think we'll just go back to the speakers list. We do not have a deferral motion on the floor, but there is one expected to be coming. Councillor Hutton, and I guess you're expressing, but if you could take the time in between to think about what questions you didn't get answered, I think we're prepared. Certainly all these good people are interested in your questions, your thoughts, and the subsequent answers that they would bring. Councillor Palache.
Yeah, sorry, excuse me, Madam Mayor, I have some questions and I have some comments also, so, yeah. Yeah, they're telling me to wave to my granddaughter, she's watching me on TV. By the time now she's in bed, she's only 3 years old, so she better be in bed. Yeah, I've been told I better be behave and, be calm. I got to tell you, first of all, right off the bat, I am excited about this proposal. I was at a BDDC meeting this morning, and I stated that to them. I know there were comments made about my position in looking. At the end, there were two proposals, and I've seen both proposals. This is the public meeting. I wanted to see them. I wanted to see the sketches of them, and wanted to see some costs. And tonight I have seen them, and I'm prepared to go the first step, and I will tell you the reason why. But I do have some questions about financing, because I want to make sure that if I am going to go forward, that concerns that I have are looked after. At the BDDC meeting this morning, there were some comments made about parking, and I was glad to see Mr. Naylor, if he's still here, yes, ask about that, because it was commented, and I know, I guess when you only say, and then nothing against the people that were speaking there this morning, but the question was put forward, or their comment was put forward, that really we're only gaining 80 parking spaces. I think Mr. Naylor, one of the members, had stated that, and that's on phase 2. And I guess, but really, it's not a case of that we're building this and we're only getting 80 spaces. I just want to confirm that phase 1 and 1A is 441 spaces, is it? For phase 1 and...
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Palache. In terms of new spaces, there's 446 in phase 1, on site 1. In terms of net new spaces, there's 388.
Total.
Total for all 3 phases is 670 net new spaces.
Net new, 670.
670 net new.
Okay, and I know that, we were talking about costs, and some councils have mentioned, and I guess I'm going to mention on each of the items here. And in reading through the proposals, or both proposals, but in the Dominus proposal, which is the preferred one, I know that there was comments that they made in their proposal that the figure that we're using and the number of spaces that we're using in a downtown core is what is higher than the norm would be. If you're looking at in the build out of these phases here, and you talk about potential cost savings, that it may not be a case where we need an additional 670 spaces when all is said and done. With the rapid transit coming to the downtown, and the promotion that we do, that we want people more and more to be on bicycles, in what we're doing with other development with the downtown, that even they said that an opportunity of saving, I believe, in this project is that you may not need that many parking spaces at a cost of $40,000 or more for an underground space. I believe that is what the cost is now today, somewhere around $45,000. Is that not correct?
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, to the councillor. That's correct. The cost in the Dominus proposal works out to about $40,000 per stall, or about $124 per square feet of parking area. Dominus did indicate that they thought the city's historical parking ratio of 0.7 stalls per person was on the high side. They recommended something lower than that, and they also recommended, as you indicated, Councillor, that the city can look at transportation and parking demand strategies to try to drive that number even lower.
I mean, the big thing that we're pushing is we want to get the cars out of the area, so why build that many? And I see that as a philosophy in the future, certainly of the downtown area and the development, which brings me next to the next item. At the BDDC meeting this morning, it was mentioned that there's not an opportunity for the other landowners around City Hall to develop. And I stated at the BDDC, I did not think that was entirely correct. I think that there's an opportunity, because there was mentioned on Queen Street, we're locking up landowners that they can't develop on either the east side or the west side. But I stated at the BDC, and I want to make sure I stated it proper and correctly, that this project does not preclude from anyone that owns property adjacent to City Hall or the development on Wellington Street or has options on that property from coming forward to Dominus and saying to them, we would like to develop that piece as you're developing your piece in City Hall, and look at doing, if there's a possibility of savings or joint type of thing with the project, that would be available to them. Is that not true?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, is that you are correct in that once we have the agreement in place between Dominus and the city for phase one, then just what you're saying is the whole reason that we're holding the RFP was to create opportunities for private sector investment in the downtown. But the first piece we have to do is get the agreement between Dominus and the city in place. But beyond that, that's the whole reason that we're doing this.
I understand that we have to get ours in place, but you don't want anybody that owns land in the downtown, I mean, can do proposals and develop. I guess what's exciting to me and in this situation is, or what I like is, and I stated it many months ago, that I would prefer to see development on city-owned land. I'm not interested in expropriation. I'm not interested. I think there has to be a commitment from the private sector. You know, we've done an awful lot of development in the downtown area. We've done the Rose Theater, the Peel Region, Peel Living. We've built a building over on Chapel Street. We're bringing residents down. I mean, that's a government project also. And I look at it on the basis that, you know, there was a time when we'd say enough is enough on the money that we're spending downtown. But in this project here, I think it's time, and I think this will spark certainly the opportunity for future development, not only with us, but with the private sector. And that's one of the reasons why I like the spots, because John Sanderson and I, some time ago, moved a motion, and then that motion stated, and I think John will remember this too, that in dealing with this project, the preferred option was that we would expand City Hall. But we also were open to any other developments within a 5-minute walking distance of the existing City Hall, so that there was the opportunity for projects to come forward to us and say, you know what, here's what we're willing to do. I mean, one of the ugliest buildings we have downtown is the parking garage over on Nelson. George Street. Absolutely. I don't know why we ever approved that in the first place, and that without some sort of facade being built on there. And
It was you and John, right?
yeah, it was John and I guess that was, you know, the BDC said this morning, they talked about this City Hall, and I said, you know, you're right. And he said, you know, one of the members said, you know, 25 years ago, I worked on bringing this City Hall down here. And I said, you know what, 25 years ago, I was a brand new council. And it was Peter Robertson and myself were the only two outside of Brampton and Bramalea who were bickering on where City Hall could be. We decided to bring it downtown, and I've been kicking my butt ever since, you know? And I'm just kidding. It was one of the best moves we made, because I know one of the insurance guys patted me on the back as I said it, and then all of a sudden stopped patting me when I said I kicked it. But yeah. I want to know about the commitment on the other phases. I understand in reading through it, that we have not made any financial commitment on Phase 2 or Phase 3. But what I want to know is, how is Dominus committed? Because on the other side of the coin, how are they committed to the other two phases in dealing with that? I want to make sure that, you know what, if it turns out that we are going to go ahead, we get infrastructure money from the federal government or that type of thing, and we make those viable and that and go, because I certainly want to see them develop. I think it's great to have a large library in the center of downtown Brampton. Absolutely. The one over there is so dysfunctional, and that is down there now. Sorry to the library, but you know what? To bring in an exciting concept like that, and what's going to happen, I absolutely think that. Geez, I almost sound like a downtown councilor, Grant. So.
We're working on it. We're working on it.
But I want to make sure that we have the commitment from them. I know this is what they came to us. This is their vision and that, but I want to make sure that we have them, that they're not going to do 1A and walk away and that for the project. So is there anything that we have in the future negotiations that we're doing after tonight? Because all we're doing, I believe, tonight is approving for you to go ahead, and this is the project of choice, but you still have to come back with the financial package to us and that type of thing in the next budget, and that for us to deal on the financing. And if we feel that we can't finance it, then that project, I believe we have the opportunity, Madam CAO, to kill the project then if we want it. If we don't have the money to do it, we're not going to be going ahead with it. But I want to know what's the commitment you believe that we can get in there to do. They make sure that they do Phase 2 and Phase 3 if we want it done.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll take a crack at this one, because I'll just repeat first what's happening with the recommendations. As I said, there's a commitment, there's the approving of Dominus as the preferred respondent, and they have provided their vision. The next recommendation is that city staff be authorized to proceed with negotiation of contractual documents for Phase 1 in an amount not more than $205 million over the 25 years. So there will be negotiation and fine-tuning of that.
Mm-hmm.
If those negotiations break down because they can't do it for that number and you've made a cap on that, those agreements come back to council.
Okay.
And council is making a commitment to negotiate agreements to that amount, but council gets the final say, and if for any reason they can't meet that, then
Okay.
council has the say.
Okay.
Then if you're talking about the later phases,
Right.
there's no commitment on timing. There would be contractual negotiations on those later phases. Right now, Dominus hasn't given us an amount of price, so there's no commitment by this council to negotiate it at any price. They haven't given that to us.
Okay.
And that would be, again, for council to consider.
Okay, can I stop you right there? then?
Sure.
Because in our package here, we have three prices. We have the price on Phase 1. We have the price on Phase 2. I would think that that's an estimated price. And we have the estimated price on Phase 3. Who came up with those prices? Was it Dominus that came up and said, well, we think you're Phase 2, and I know that's only principle. I mean, I understand that, and a lot of people are shocked at this dollar, but you're absolutely right in the presentation. When you buy a house and you pay so much for the house, you don't say, go to your friend and say, you know what, I just paid for this house, but it's gonna cost me 3 times that amount because I've financed it. Boy, am I ever happy, you know? Nobody goes around and says that, you know? I never did. The first house I ever bought was $47,000. By the time I paid the mortgage, it probably cost me $160,000 on the interest and that type of thing way back then. And the thing, so, you know, you gotta remember that type of thing, but the prices, the 86 million, I'm sorry, I don't have the page here in front of me, but I was looking at this thing here.
Oh, it's on page,
39? Oh, I'm only 2 pages off.
through you, Madam Mayor, if I may respond to the councillor. The information that's on this page is
Right.
actually been calculated by city staff for
Okay.
illustration purposes to talk about the, again, order of magnitude of the city-initiated investment
Overall.
in the downtown. That's
Okay,
correct.
so we're looking at, but in doing that, like, I mean, phase 1 and 1A, we know what the costs are per square foot. So phase 2 and phase 3, you've based it on the cost of square foot on today's figures. Okay, because nobody has a long-range crystal ball. So on the financing, which was 2 pages before that, 37, here's where, I guess also, also, just in the meantime, it was reported in the papers that the cost of phase 1 will cost us $746 per square foot to construct.
What paper is that? Oh, a newspaper or our?
Yeah, in the newspaper. Where would they have got those figures? Did we send out those figures saying that it's $746 per square foot, or did somebody just think that up and?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Pelletier, that number was reported through some of the comments to the media. And again, as I explained earlier, somebody has done some quick math, divided 94 million divided by 126,000.
Oh, okay, so they didn't actually have all their facts straight?
They did not have the
Okay,
total
all right.
gross area.
I just wanted to make sure
of
that
the
that, you know,
structure.
I know they think they're factual, but I guess that's sometimes a problem. On page 37, the build to own, and Grant brought this up, and the lease to own. And I guess the difference was the annual cost of the city of 6.6 million and 8.2 million. And I just want to get this clear in my mind, because I think Councillor Sprovieri spoke to this too. In doing the contractual agreement that we're going to look at to a maximum of $8.2 million per year starting in 2014, is there the opportunity, though, for us to look at creative financing in dealing with this and dealing with the budget in 2012, that there may be the opportunity for us to do some creative financing with Dominus in the fact of getting an opportunity for them to use? The only thing I'm concerned about is risk, though, because, I mean, that's one of the things that we are eliminating here by doing this project, is risk to the city and the taxpayers, that there's a maximum. That we can do some creative financing in using our AAA rating and the opportunity that we, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong guy. So the opportunity to be able to do that to help lower some of those costs, so that we could possibly come down closer to the 6.6 million by using our rate.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we will, and we definitely will have that as one of the options when we report back to council.
Okay, good. All right, so there is that opportunity. I think that answers all of my questions. Yeah, who wants to talk about the TRCA? My favorite subject, the conservation authorities, and what they won't allow us to do. And I know that Mr. Naylor talked about the channel and what we're trying to do with the conservation authority, and I'm happy to say that I believe, Councillor Sprovieri, you guys negotiated with the TRCA that they are going to keep that commitment to the $500,000, and that as the first phase of study for clearing up that channel. In the risk side, if we do have a problem with the TRCA, and that they're saying, you know what, there's additional costs that you have to incur, there's mitigation that you have to do to protect for the flooding and that type of thing, in this option, whose is that risk to? Is the risk to here at the city, or through this proposal, because we're doing a maximum price, is the risk to Dominus?
Madam Mayor, yes, they have, as part of their detailed submission, as I mentioned earlier to a question of Councillor Sprovieri's, they did their own assessment through their consultants to look at what's entailed to meet the floodproofing requirements. So they've done their due diligence on that part, and there will be, structural and building design elements that will have to be made that will be costly to mitigate the flood issue. But they are fully cognizant of it, and that was part of the RFP process, that they were to address it satisfactorily, and we are satisfied.
So
at
that's
this stage
part of,
they
that
have.
is included in
Yes.
part of the cost
Yes.
of the if the TRCA comes back and says you gotta do build it 15 feet higher off the ground and put in an emergency access 3 floors up.
And again, through you, Madam Mayor, it's not as risky because there isn't in the initial phases a high-density residential component, and that's where the most onerous floodproofing requirements are, much less for the retail, office, and commercial.
But there is the opportunity in Phase 3 for a residential component
Yes.
that
And-
we're looking at, but, and that, is that part of the?
No, that's
is-
not in the
The
floodplain.
library's not in the
That's on
floodplain
higher-
because of the railway?
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think I'm satisfied. My questions have been answered to go on to the next phase. I certainly believe in staff that they will come back to us with some creative financing and to help reduce the cost of the initial cost going forward, because one of my positions was that there is minimal impact to the taxpayers, and I think there is the opportunity here for us to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I want to say at the outset, I think that this is a wonderful opportunity for downtown Brampton. As one of the councillors a few years ago who participated in the 205 project and in 209 pushed council to make the decision to move forward with we were calling it at the time a City Hall expansion, and it kind of morphed into a Southwest Quadrant renewal. I was really looking forward to seeing the proposals coming forward this evening. So, and I have to say, while the boards tonight are a little bit more of a aesthetically pleasing and a little bit more of a wow factor than what we received in our courier package last week, I'm not sure it's quite the signature building that I had expected to see, but I'm sort of going to form my questions around the dollars on it, because quite frankly, at this point, it's less about how it looks and a lot about what it's going to cost. I have no doubt that our staff have scrutinized the numbers every which way to Sunday, because they know that this is something that's going to be highly scrutinized by this council. But I think at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers who are going to scrutinize the numbers. And I'm not sure that they've been given ample opportunity, and the mayor made reference to a motion at some point this evening to defer, and I will put that on the floor at some point this evening. I'm not now, obviously, because I think it's important that all members of council have an opportunity, but I do have some very serious questions about the affordability of this. I think the world has changed a little bit during the period of time that this happened. It certainly has changed with respect to how the RFP was responded to. I'm looking at an RFP before us that Phase 1A and 1 is entirely on city property. Phase 2 is 50% on city property, and Phase 3 is on city property. And I'm kind of wondering why we wouldn't have just done a traditional RFP and saved ourselves all of this grief and aggravation over a process. So I don't know whether that's a question or more of a comment, Commissioner Pattison, but at the end of the day, that's what we've ended up with, is we went with the non-traditional approach to acquire infrastructure in part because we wanted to contain the costs and because we wanted an addition to City Hall. That was our preference. We reiterated that several times throughout the discussion and in the motion. So, you know, at the end, if it was going to all be on city property, why would we have done, we could have done a more traditional approach on an RFP.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. As you indicated, the resolutions that were set forward in 2009 really drove the process for the type of procurement that we selected. We also have to remember we didn't have a funding source. So to go out with a traditional procurement approach, a stipulated sum, design build, design bid build, design competition, simply not possible without putting the dollars forward first. In addition to the 4 reasons that we talked about for, not advancing the earlier proposal call and offering. That's the reality of it, and that's what led us to seek a private sector solution where our sole financial commitment, as set out in the RFP, is a contribution of some city-owned land parcels and an occupancy payment that starts in 2014. So, that's where we were, and that's where we are. And I think the competitive dialogue process, addressed the objectives that were set out in those 2009 resolutions and in the RFP.
Okay, thank you. I've got a number of questions, and I've listened to other members of council, so I'll try not to repeat the questions, although I think tonight will probably be a good exercise to staff on answering the same question asked different ways by different councillors. I guess it's somewhat like a teacher in a classroom with 30 kids, all who learn a different way, so I apologize for that. But once a partner is selected and we agree on what the financial contract is going to look like, and in the recommendations it's 8.2 million over 25 years, or up to 8.2 million. Once that decision is made, what is the role of members of council moving forward in terms of participating specifically around any changes we might want to see? And I'll speak just to phase 1 and phase 1A. Is what we see carved in stone in terms of the design, or is it something that, as members of council, from this point forward, because we haven't had that opportunity up until now, that we will have an opportunity for input?
Through you, Madam Mayor, what you see in the renderings that we have in the package tonight and the display panels are basic concepts showing the massing and conceptual design. And through the process of implementing recommendation number 3 in terms of negotiating the contract, we'll have to drill down more in those details on what the actual design, the materials, the fenestration, et cetera. So we'll be reporting back to council on those details as we need direction to finalize those negotiations.
In the previous process, and I hate to go, compare the two, but I'm going to do that. There was an opportunity for those who sat on that committee to offer suggestions, reaction. And I think it's a different process if staff are just going to be coming to us with recommendations versus members of council actually having an opportunity to participate on a steering committee. This is a significant project. There was a steering committee for the Rose Theatre project, and I think there is a significant benefit in having that same type of input from elected officials as the project progresses. So I'm trying to understand what role the members around here play, other than dealing with recommendations that come in a staff report.
To answer that question.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to members of council, as with all policy projects and all program or policy issues before council, the staff group generally serve all members of council, and it would be the intention with this project, as with all projects, that we would establish a work plan and milestones and would report to all members of council.
So if I hear you correctly, there is no interest on the part of staff in establishing an advisory committee or a steering committee of councillors like there was for the Rose Theatre. So this will be an entirely staff-driven process.
Through you, Madam Mayor, what I said was that the staff appreciate that this is a project of significant interest and priority to all members of council, and we would expect to report into all members of council. But of course, if council chooses to establish a committee, that is entirely your prerogative.
Thank you. On phase 2 and 3, I'm still not clear as to whether or not we are, I understand we're not committed to phase 2 or 3, and I'm not sure we got an answer here this evening. If we proceed with phase two, or the concept of building a library and parking in and around our Nelson Street garage, are we committed to Dominus for that project? And are we committed to Dominus on phase three? That's what I'm trying to understand. Is this a 20-year, potentially, hopefully not, commitment to Dominus? Or is this a commitment to a vision where this council or future councils have the flexibility or the option of going to the market to deliver a phase two, phase three vision, so that we make sure we get the best value for taxpayers? And I'm not saying Dominus won't give us the best. I'm just saying it looks to me like an exclusive sole sourcing scenario.
Through you, Madam Mayor. It looks like some of the members are looking to me to answer to that one. If what the question is, if you like the Dominus vision, can the city do those buildings themselves and hire somebody else to do them? Well, the answer to that would be no. We are committing to a preferred respondent to work through that vision with them. There's not a commitment that, say, in phase two, that there's no specific commitment to how that would be completed. It's a commitment to enter into a negotiation, contractual negotiation with them to do that.
Oh. But there's no commitment to do it at this point. What if the city were to choose a different site for a library? How does that lend itself to litigation, as Councillor Sprovieri has indicated? Because I guess I'm hearing conflicting messages here. One was that we're not committing future councils to move forward, and yet I'm hearing from you that if we go with this, then we are contractually bound to the vision.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I was trying to point out that no, we haven't entered into any contracts to be contractually bound to deliver phase two. Step one is its direction to negotiate contracts for phase one. Those contracts would come back to council for approval, and if approved, then we have a contract with Dominus for phase one. Next step would be phase two. If council then directs negotiate with Dominus on phase two, then whatever amount and whatever timeline that came to would again come back to council.
It's a very simple question. Are we getting married to Dominus for phase 1, 2, and 3, whether that happens over 4 years, 10 years, or 20 years? Did we just go to the altar? What? Shotgun wedding.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The RFP, the first section of the RFP very clearly states that the city is seeking a long-term development partner. So we are getting married in the context of we're saying that we like the vision that they put forward. We, as a city, specified in the RFP what work would be done under phase one. We gave specific timeline. In phase two and phase three, that work, we did not provide any timelines for that work to be done as a city, okay? What we did do as part of our work, though, we did determine that Dominus has the technical and financial capacity to deliver on all 3 phases. However, the contractual agreements that we're asking for to be entered into tonight is based on phase 1. As I said earlier, with respect to the timing of phases 2 and 3, those are council decisions. The only parameter that we gave the respondents in the RFP was for the second 120,000 square feet of admin space. We had a date of 2031, which is our build-out, which we knew we needed to have the space by, but we didn't say we needed it in 2000 and whatever date. That is not specified. So the answer to your question is the respondent answered and provided a final offer to the RFP based on the requirements of the RFP to say that we were seeking a long-term development partner and they would be looking to deliver that division over a period of time.
Thank you. So, Councillor Sprovieri, I guess, if that, does that answer your question? Because that's my understanding of what you had put forward earlier this evening was that you didn't want to lock members of council because, what did you say, once bitten, twice burned or something? I don't know how the saying goes. So, in any event, that's fine. I guess you've clarified that. I do have some concern about the fact that there were only 2 respondents at the end of the day, and I guess that's, I'll just put that out there as a concern. I guess, again, in 2009, council, as part of the overall resolution, what we said was that the consideration for a city build-to-own option needs to be deleted as a possible development option at an order of magnitude estimate of $204 million. And that was for a build-to-own. And so now we're looking at a lease arrangement that, and I'm assuming that the $204 million, if my recollection is correct, that $204 million was construction cost. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, the $204 million was the construction cost of a 246,000 square foot building. The construction cost.
I understand. What I'm trying to get at, and it doesn't, it was the construction cost.
It was the construction cost. The construction cost we're looking at today is $94 million for 126,000. It is a bit of a coincidence that the aggregate payment amount for the 94 million works out to a number that's comparable to the construction cost of the 246
Except that,
million.
Commissioner Pattison, I'm not comparing the 204 million construction cost in 2009 to the 205 lease to own now. What I'm comparing it to is the 251 million, which is the 2011 cost, a dollar value, construction value, to deliver what we wanted to deliver, what we were saying in 2004 we could deliver for 204 million.
It does, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Moore, it doesn't have the same list of amenities. You know, when we compared, you know, the list of amenities to what was put forward in 2007, it doesn't match up. I mean, certainly we can do that comparison.
2009, not 2007.
Well, oh, I see. You're referring to the numbers that were discussed at the April 2009 workshop. Again, I don't think it's an apples-to-apples comparison with the exact list of amenities.
I think Councillor Paleschi asked this question. This is where we get to one of those, I think I'm going to ask the same question a different way. When I saw the original, the proposal, it is the one that's on the floor, what I see is Queen Street frontage from Main to George being intersected by taking out 33 Queen and dividing east and west of that into 2 parcels. And I'm not sure that, or maybe Councillor Paleschi and my question was different. Once we enter into a contractual agreement with Dominus, then does Dominus have are they free to enter into an agreement with, that would add on to that with any of the property owners east or west of that 33 Queen.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Moore, yes, once we have entered into our contractual agreements with Dominus, the adjacent landowners would be free to do that, but they would not be necessarily restricted to dealing with only Dominus. Certainly, they could approach Dominus, but that our agreement with Dominus does not create an exclusive development right for the entire downtown.
Okay. I guess my concern was that by dividing that block of Queen Street in half, were we limiting the opportunities for redevelopment on that? I mean, there'd certainly be some benefits in partnering with Dominus, because then you could make something different than if somebody comes in after the fact and tries to match up with what we've done. I just saw it as somewhat of a missed opportunity if we're going to keep some of that architecture there, you know, and put our building up the center of literally in the middle of that block. I do have some concern about that. I have a question. It was raised by one of the delegates this evening on the Fairness Advisor. And Councillor Gibson asked this as well. Were we ever advised that the Fairness Advisor was Professor McKellar? Because when I went through all of was it in a report?
Couldn't find it in that.
It was not in the package. I mean, all the reports make reference to, I understand that he was introduced to us. I recall him being introduced as, you know, the world's foremost leading authority on delivering civic infrastructure, but not necessarily that he would continue on as the Fairness Advisor. And quite frankly, I see that as a conflict, that he would recommend a process to us and then evaluate the process and offer his opinion on how successful it was. I don't see that was appropriate. Honestly, maybe you can comment on that, but it seems to me that it just isn't right that somebody recommends a process to us and then evaluates the process.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor. Professor McKellar was in favor of competitive dialogue, as was our competitive dialogue and financial advisor, Deloitte Touche. As I mentioned earlier, there was very few options available given the constraints of the initial proposal we went through and the resolutions that came out in 2009. Really, you know, there was not very many procurement options available to us, and we had two very well-known people recommending that as a solution. So.
Oh, we kind of boxed you into a corner. Sorry about that. But on the phase 2, the respondent in the report has an option on the property immediately adjacent to the city-owned Nelson Street parking garage. What is the expiry date on this option? How long is the owner prepared to sit with an open option on it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the question that you raise is one of the comments that in terms of the commercial confidentiality, that is something, again, where the respondent has made a commitment to acquire property without the city involvement and to be able to deliver a building that the city could occupy. So on that basis, that information we have not made available to council at this time and the public, because it's the information of the respondent.
Okay. So how do we know that the option is not going to expire? It says in the report. There's an option. Says right in the report that that Dominus has an option on the property.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the counselor, the answer I can do for your question is that they have an option on the property. That is correct. I can tell you that. I can't tell you when it expires, but I can tell you that they know that as part of the delivery of Phase 2, and in order for the city to occupy, they need that land, and it's incumbent on them to make sure that land is available when the city and them get into the position to start the construction of Phase 2 so the city can occupy.
But if council takes 10 years to make a decision on Phase 2, and I think we just need to look at our financial landscape to know that making the decision next week or next year is pretty remote on moving forward with Phase 2 or 3. Then how do we know that the option is not going to expire and that Dominus will not actually be able to deliver on Phase 2? So my concern about not having some timelines attached to this is that we are generating some excitement in the community around a proposal that's going to deliver some much-needed infrastructure in our downtown and revitalize our downtown. It's somewhat, I'm not going to say dishonest, but it's like, teasing someone with, a kid with a sucker and then yanking it away if we don't know when we're going to deliver on Phase 2 or 3. If I think the expiry date on that option is critical for us to know so that we don't buy into a vision where there's the potential that it can't be delivered. I can't imagine that property owner will sit on that property for 3, 5, 10 years unless Dominus are prepared to purchase it so that they can secure their ability to deliver on Phase 2. But one of the delegations came forward tonight and said, we need a grocery store in the downtown. What if we have somebody come forward and say this is an ideal site for a grocery store sometime between now and that point in time when council is in a position to make a decision on Phase 2? We've locked up a piece of land potentially in the downtown that is ripe for redevelopment, where we've potentially sterilized it. I know we own half of it, but, at one point we were trying to...
Madam Mayor, perhaps I can...
I'm trying to figure out, seriously.
Madam Mayor, perhaps I can assist. While I don't know the answer to the question of what their option is, it would be commercially reasonable for them to wait to see what the city does before they say enter into a 10-year option. So I don't know what their option is, but I would think it would be commercially reasonable for them to wait to find out the city position before committing to a long-term option.
Would that be part of our negotiation with them on Phase 1 and 2, that they lock up an option on the Phase 2 property for a period of time that this council deems appropriate?
That is something that would, in the Phase 1 negotiations, if that was an issue, for example, if in terms of financial commitments from the city and that sort of thing came up, that might be, but that's possible.
Well, it seems to me if we're going out to the public to sell a vision that is a 4-location package in the downtown, then we need to do what we need to do to protect that, our ability to deliver on that, even though we don't have any money and we haven't made the decision. We need to protect our ability to deliver on that if we're going to generate some excitement, particularly among those who own and operate businesses in the downtown. So I guess you take that under advisement, do you? The other question I have is on the 65 Queen Street East property. Part of the resolution that we passed a couple of years ago was that staff would assemble an inventory of all of the city-owned property that might be declared surplus, that we could dispose of and make some money and help to offset the cost of this. I understand from the report that that's not something that we've done yet. However, in the context of this, we're looking at the 65 Queen Street East, and it's a city-owned property with the library on it. Do we have the if we proceed with Phase 2, which is to relocate the library, is there any way that we can uncommit to Phase 3 if it's more beneficial to us financially to dispose of the property? I understand it leaves us in a bit of a dilemma for 120,000 square feet, which is why I asked the first question this evening of how we can change Phase 1.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Moore. We know what the occupancy cost model is for Phase 1. It's a lease-to-own scenario with a nominal value on the city's lease lands, and both the land and the building reverting to us at the end of the lease period. We don't know what the occupancy model will be on phases 2 or 3. So it is possible that there could be some opportunity to seek recognition of the value of that property. But it's too early to tell at this point. But certainly, again, as we will come to council to seek direction each time we go out on another phase, if that's something that you want us to pursue or take under advisement, we could do that.
Okay, but I don't think you've answered my question. If by this resolution we've committed into a package of 3 phases or 4 phases of a project, is the disposal of 65 Queen Street an option rather than essentially doing a land exchange to deliver at the 120,000 square feet on the library site? Can we sell it? Or are we committed to Dominus?
Sorry,
to
Councillor, I
build?
did try to answer the question, but I will try again.
And I thought I was listening, I just missed
No,
it.
that's fine. We know what the ownership and occupancy models are going to be for the first phase. So we're proposing to lease our lands at a nominal value, and then at the end of the lease period for both the buildings and the land, the ownership comes back to us.
On the retail as well?
No, I'm specific. No, the retail stays with Dominus. On the library, we don't know yet what the mechanics of that deal, if I can use a term, what the mechanics of that deal will be. And so certainly